Welcome back to your virtual tea time. My name is Tori and I'm your host. And today we got two pros here. We have Matt and Evan from Par Train. Hi guys, how are you?
Good.
Good
Thanks
to
for
see
having
you.
us.
So you are in Arizona visiting from Chicago and LA.
Yep.
Yeah.
So why are you in town? Give us the skinny. What's going on here?
Well, it was really fun this week. We were down here to play in a True Links golf outing. True Links is a great shoe. They're known for their golf shoes.
Now
and
apparel,
getting
yeah.
into the apparel. So they had an outing for all their, partners, friends, followers, ambassadors. So it was really fun, and we got to team up for the first time in a tournament, 3 rounds.
Yeah.
And not only did we get to play, but we shot a lot of content with True Links. We're launching a new series called Swing Thoughts. So we did some videos out on the course with some of the players. And we did 2 podcasts, actually, too. So
We got some interesting tidbits, too, from this series. If it could be interesting fodder for this conversation, I'm sure.
Okay, I like it. So
Yeah.
I'm loving that what's it called? True
Links.
Links. Yeah. We actually met them recently, right, Ash? Okay. So True Links, they're kind of doing like a brand ambassador trip, it sounds like. They're diving into that avenue. So it's all ambassadors that was there, influencers?
No, not necessarily. There were some of them. We were invited to go, but there was a lot of some of their fans, people that have been buying their shoes for years, partners, etc. So I think they're getting on the tournament scene.
Yeah.
I love it. And 3 days. That's pretty substantial. Where were you?
There was actually 4 days. They did a skins game that we didn't play in because we were out on the course shooting some videos with the players.
We were quite happy that we weren't
probably needed
playing
it
too.
nice to get a little breather. But it was really fun. I mean, it was a one best ball. They had a gross division and a net division, and
Even
we
better.
had a chance in the net division after the first round. We kind of tailed off.
Yeah, we were tied for 5th after the first round, and then second 2 rounds not as good.
Well, what golf course?
Whirlwind.
Yeah,
Whirlwind Golf
I've
Club.
actually never played there. What'd you think of it?
It's pretty good.
Pretty good?
Yeah.
I mean, one course is a little bit more open and a little bit longer.
Yeah, more
The other
dog legs
course is a
too.
little shorter but more narrow. But definitely, from the mental side, it's interesting the first time playing a course, and it can be really intimidating off the tee, and you're not really sure what you're looking at, what you're supposed to look at. Once you get to the fairway, it feels totally different. Oh, I would have done that differently, right? So sometimes it's hard to commit in that situation.
A couple guys who don't really play desert golf either.
Yeah.
So you really have to have a good plan, find a target, because you're looking at a lot with a desert golf, as you know. But it's sometimes a little wider than it looks. But you've got to convince yourself that that's true and pick the right club.
No, desert courses are tough because, again, you're standing in this tee box. The fairway is, in fact, ginormous, but all you see is the desert. Yeah. And most of the desert courses you hit in the desert, and she gone. I mean, she most likely is in a bush, if not lost.
This is the funny part.
That was one of our first T-shirts. She gone.
She gone.
Yeah, we did one of the Supreme logos with just she gone, and
But you know what's funny? The first day we found a lot of balls. And
I made 3 birdies from. Can I cuss?
Yes, please.
From the shit in the desert. We had this lovely girl Jen come out to video us for the 3 days for our YouTube channel.
She was great.
And bless her soul, she was helping us find balls. She's just one of those people that has an eye for it, The one of those people you want in your group. She was finding balls. I had an opening. It was like the Bagger Vance moment. And that's actually a real insight too, is a lot of times you hit your best shots from the trees or from the shit. Just because you laser in, you get very clear in what you're trying to do, and you hit a miraculous shot. So
I love it.
But-
First time.
But you can't do it. What we found out that too many balls in the desert over the next couple of days.
yeah, you can't
You
do
start
it every
losing
time.
them.
Yeah, that's when, first round good, second 2 rounds not so good.
Yeah,
You start losing them at some point, but
Yeah.
it was super fun.
How was it playing together for the first time?
Well, I mean, it was a great time. I think it was kind of just something we've been waiting to do. We've obviously played together, just never in a tournament together.
Yeah, no, it's so fun.
Right, and this is what we talk about a lot in the show. Is like you got to create your vibe as a team. You got to figure out what's your chemistry, what's your flow, what makes your partner tick. All these things that go into team golf. We had a great time. I can't wait to do it again.
Team golf is definitely a different dynamic, right? Because I think everybody gets nervous of what someone thinks, but it's also can make it harder if you feel like you're letting your partner down. And I've gone through that personally many, many times, especially today and yesterday, where, he played college golf. He's a scratch. I'm like a 7. So it's like we're going to make most of our birdies in a net game because I make a par and we get a pop. You know,
Exactly, yeah.
we're going to sprinkle in some regular gross birdies, but it's easy to get really down on yourself really quick because you feel like you're letting someone down.
Well,
you
because
know?
every time you step up to a tee box and you know you have a pop, it's like, okay, wait, this is what I'm here for. This
Right.
is like, I got to produce.
And you make it different than a normal shot.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. Do you have normal partners back in your hometowns that you always play tournaments with?
I don't have normal partners. I have played a few member guests with some friends like in Kansas City and Kentucky. So I've done a few of those. He's done a few member guests, but I don't think I would say a consistent partner on a circuit. But hey, that could change, you know?
Yeah. My best buddy back home, I'm from St. Louis originally, live in LA now, but I would go back and we'd play at his club. But this is the first year I'm not going to do it. He moved to Kansas City, not going to join a club this year. So
I can't believe you do that to you.
this was kind of my replacement for
What
that.
is he thinking? I mean, gosh.
Didn't take Evan into account.
It is sad. It's a tough scene, but
But-
we'll get back from it.
All right, tell me about Par Train. How to get started, what's it all about, what's behind it, and then talk about your new series you have too.
Yeah, so speaking of my buddy Ryan, who is my buddy from back home, so he was my best friend growing up. He was his best friend in college, so they were college teammates. And at Ryan's wedding in Kansas City, we were like, well, this is kind of interesting. You know, I kind of like passed him off to you, and you kind of took him through college. Let's do a speech, you know, at the rehearsal dinner. So there might have been some wigs involved. We actually sitting in chairs like this. And
Very theatrical.
We mimed like a little paddle boat with the wigs because that's how he proposed.
There was a scene.
And I'm not going to, the story is we kind of brought the house down and we were like, it's weird that it would go from that to a golf podcast, but
You got addicted to the mic. You were like,
we did. We're
where's
like,
the mic? How can we use it?
something happens
next?
when we got the mic in our hand together. And
It's just magic.
I love digging into why things are the way they are.
I love it.
And he's a better player than me. So we come at it from different angles.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been doing it for like 6.5 years or so.
Yeah.
And passed 1 million downloads in January. And
Pretty cool. We
That's
both thought it would be
fantastic.
fun. Evan has passion for golf. I have passion for golf. Grew up playing, come from a big golfing family. Evan got really passionate in college about golf. So it was like we just had a lot to talk about, but kind of from different experiences. And it was like, what can we do with this?
Yeah.
it comes from four boys in the family, all play D1 college golf.
Yeah, it was my mom and
Ooh,
dad
a little competitive
got
there.
us into golf, and yeah, a lot of good memories, a lot of good stories of us playing together, and it's fun talking about it now on
Yeah.
the show, like those experiences and what we learned, and how to practice, and how to think, how to train, and and how to be up when you're down,
Absolutely.
So it's really fun.
And how about the new series that you guys are filming this week? Tell us about it.
Yeah, so it's called Swing Thoughts. And the idea is walk up to someone on a tee box. It's a YouTube series, and we'll share it on our socials too, of flash them a $20 bill from our own pocket. And based on their handicap, let's say they're below a 15, we'll say, if you par this hole, we'll give you $20. If you birdie it, we'll double it and give you 40. The only condition is you got to tell us what's going on in your head. So we walk with them as they play the hole, and it was actually really inspiring and eye-opening because we've interviewed, so we do mental game roundtables a lot of times on the show, anyone from a PGA Tour Pro to a 15-plus handicap, right? And so we've seen the differences of what certain people struggle with, common faults for a high handicapper, how do pros think about things. But yesterday, we did one hole after the other. We did a +3 to a 1 to a 5 to a 10. Same hole, same strategy, well, same shots, but different strategies. And it was so eye-opening how blatantly different every type of player is.
So they were different. If I had to guess, I would think that they were all thinking kind of the same thing, but at different levels. But you're saying it's completely different for
Yeah.
each.
Completely different.
So to paint the picture a little bit, we were on this 350-yard par 4. But they got to go bunkers on the right, water on the left, downwind,
Everything kind of kicks to the
and
left.
then
too.
your second shot's over the water, tight hole location.
Front pin.
So it's really
elevated
it's
too.
really a position hole. But we saw the 5 handicapper and the 10 handicapper just pull driver. hitting driver.
Only ones to pull driver, 2 highest handicaps.
And they both put them in the water. The one handicap and the +3 both pulled hybrids and 4-irons and put them in the fairway. You know,
Did you even ask them like where they were measuring, like to the bunker,
Oh,
so
yeah.
that they wouldn't get into the bunker too?
they were trying to get really specific, not to get too far. It was really funny. One of the guys, Jeff, said, "I don't want to be in the puke zone," which is basically 55 to 80 yards. And he actually, both of them ended up being in it because it was so firm and fast. They were trying to lay back, so then they had kind of delicate shots. But I think what you thought was really cool, listening to really good players talk about, these are tough shots. Okay, those 60-yarders, those 70-yarders, especially over water into a front pin, that's hard for a really good player. And they're talking through that, and they were like, I'm just trying to get something up on the green, 20 feet, 25 feet. When I think a lot of people would think, well, wait a minute, that guy's a +3. He should stiff it in there. And they're really thinking way more strategic and way more conservative to aggressive targets, where a 5 handicap's a good player and a 10 handicap's a pretty good player. But it's just like, I'm going to hit driver, and I'm going to take it over the bunkers and see what happens in the water.
And probably still, like, if they do have a wedge in their hand, if they do have that 70-yard shot into the green, they're probably not thinking of, this is actually a very hard shot, like you mentioned, and getting within 25 feet is a bonus.
It's fine,
Yeah.
Let me break down the intricacies of the +3 handicap, because this still blows my mind. We might do a
Let's
whole
get into it.
podcast on it. So this guy, he coaches now, played a little on the mini tours, amazing swing, probably the best swing we saw, or my favorite swing. And he smokes this mid-flight 4-iron over the bunker, and it rolls out a little farther than he wanted, right? So this is like a 75-yard shot, elevated green, front pin, I wouldn't have even thought that there was a breeze.
It's a little downwind.
Little downwind and down slope. Now, I think the key, keep me honest here, between the +3 and everybody else, and the one was like this too, was attention to detail and also acknowledging difficulty, where I wouldn't even have thought as a 7 it would have been that difficult. So an example of this is he's saying, like, I'm going to try, this is a really hard shot, which for me, I would have thought, like, I feel pretty good with a 70-yard shot, a light wedge. I'm just going to put it up there, and, like, I wouldn't think twice about it.
Yeah, aim
But
right
to
at the
him,
pin.
he's like, well, you've got the downslope, you've got a slight breeze, it's a front pin. This is a really hard shot. I'm going to be happy if I put this 25 feet past the pin. And that's where he put it, hit it a little longer than we thought. He's go, see, it's a really tough shot. Went a little bit longer than I thought, firm greens. But then we're with the 10 handicap, who hit it in the water.
Drops it kind of in the same area.
Same area, and just didn't think or say really much of anything. Hit his wedge off the green, kind of pin high.
Pretty good shot.
Pretty good shot when you think of the situation, but he was probably not happy with it because he didn't hit the green. And so it's so interesting to me that someone that is significantly worse from a level standpoint thinks something is easier or doesn't acknowledge that it's difficult, and also isn't paying attention to the details. That's something he's helped me a lot with, is I like to just kind of get in and go. But I'm not, I think focus is a real thing. When you talk to tour pros on our podcast, it's all about focus. You hear Phil talk a lot about that over the years. When he won the PGA, it was like, I finally focused.
Yeah. When it's your time to hit, right? What is that zone that you get in? What do you have to repeat every time? And that's what the best players do. It was also interesting, like the higher handicap guys, when we were talking about their games, they started talking a little bit about mechanics, what they do well, what they don't do well. With the really good players, they're just like, well, it's all about putting. It's all about getting in a groove on the, they're just talking about strategy and about putting, and we know those guys have spent so much time around the short game area, right? They'll go hit balls for a little bit, but they're not going to sit on the range all day because that's not where you score. And so the insights we're getting was
also
just
the reactions.
Yeah.
How about the scratch and belows when they 3-putted? Because multiple did. He goes, dude, I play enough golf. I'm going to make my fair share of 3-putts.
Yeah, he ended up
Like he was okay with
the
it.
+3
He
ended
expected
up
it.
like he didn't win
3-putting
money.
from like 30 feet because it was downhill putt. And he goes, man, I made 6 birdies this morning. These things happen. You're going to 3-putt.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So you're talking about the +3.
Yeah, he actually ended up three putting, but he was just like,
But like his reaction after
Yeah.
three putting
who cares?
didn't take it personal. It was just the fact of law of averages, right? Dispersion and all of that stuff. Yeah. Whereas the 10 and like how I've experienced the past couple of days, you feel terrible
After a three,
you know, and we're much worse than that player.
Exactly.
So it's depersonalizing it and just kind of accepting it and being able to move on. I think that's really one of the biggest keys of guys on tour and gals on tour. We just interviewed Maria Fassi a couple weeks ago. They are really good at moving on quickly. John Rahm, be a goldfish type, type mindset.
So the way that the +3 and the scratch golfer were talking through that 60-yard shot, is that something you can teach, or is that just experience, you think? Like, can we teach the 5-10 handicap
yeah,
about these things, or is that just reps?
I think you can teach it, but teach how to approach the golf shot. Really focus on the wind, look at the terrain, look at where you need to miss it, look at where your options are. You can teach that. Now, to be able then to hit the shot, might take more time, right? To teach a 10 handicap to hit, a sawed-off wedge from a downhill lie is going to take a lot of practice.
That sounds horrible.
But right? But you can teach those mechanics. Yeah. That's going to take the time. But I don't know if enough. I don't know if it's the coach problem or the player problem. It's just is the player interested in knowing the details, getting into the weeds, and approaching golf from a strategic standpoint, or are you just out there to, not be into that? Yeah. But if you really want to be great, you really want to score, that's what you have to do.
It's also a great way to get out of your own way, where if you can fill your head, and we saw this the way the round finished today, like if it's really easy to fill your head with what am I doing in my swing? What is my tendency? What do I need to get back to in my swing? What misses am I trying to prevent? But then if you get really clear on like the lie, the wind, the green, inherently you're distracting yourself from the stuff that gets in your way, and you're getting really clear at the same time of committing to what you're trying to do. Now, I'll tell you firsthand, it's going to be on video on our YouTube. You're going to see it. Like, I really struggled. Like, easier said than done.
Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
But I think that's kind of what we love about our show is like, it doesn't matter how long you've been playing. It doesn't matter how good your last shot was. You have to do it every time, which is why golf is so exhausting.
It's so hard to focus.
And so hard.
Jordan Spieth talks about it. Like, he's like 50% at the Masters, 50% of my swings today, I didn't even really have a target. Because you're just, and that's one of the greatest players of our generation. And it's just because it's hard. It's hard to stay focused, So
you guys have tons of really good guests on your podcast. You've already named a few, but can we talk about the 15-year-old that you just had on? What was his name? Carter?
Carter, yeah.
Okay, so I'm listening to your podcast and I'm listening to Carter, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to look this kid up. I mean, he's got full-fledged website. He's a podcast host. I've never felt worse about where I am. I mean, 15 years old.
We felt the same way. Like, this kid's got his shit
and he's
together.
a +3.
Yeah.
So what did you learn most from the 15-year-old that is like 20 steps ahead of us at this point? And he's 15 and in his golf journey.
I was really impressed growing up playing in high school and having that goal to play Division I, which is his goal. I was really impressed with how regimented he is and how he thinks about his practice from a holistic standpoint. Like, he's working with a trainer. He's working. I mean, granted, it's nice to have these resources, but he's working with a trainer. He's working with a nutritionist. He's talked to a sports psychologist. He does Google Earth. He looks at every course he's going to play with Google Earth, right, to kind of strategize as he's going to play each hole. That's a real sign of maturity, because all these kids can be so talented, and he really did a nice job talking with us. I can sense a calmness from him. Yeah. But I would say how he approaches his practice, he's ahead of his years.
And I think his preparation, I think Rory said this before the Masters, like preparation helps lead to comfort for Rory. I think Carter kind of echoed that for him, where I think it's really easy, especially that young, but for any of us, you go into an event and you kind of just hope you have it. You kind of hope you play well. But I think what Carter's preparation does, and Serm's brother Joe does this, who's competed in mid-ams and and a bunch of high-level amateur tournaments as well as PGA Tour Canada, I think.
Yep.
I think to an average golfer, mapping out the course sounds kind of crazy, although I think we all kind of love like looking at the photos and digging into the scorecard and stuff. But I think what Carter does is like he looks at holes in a way, it's very, driven by Decade, Scott Fawcett's system of like, he knows his dispersion. So he's just going to pick the spots on every hole and the clubs that basically allow for his dispersion. So either miss that he has, he should be okay. Probably doesn't always go to plan, but at least he's giving himself the best chance. And what I've learned is that helps you kind of swing freer because you're giving yourself room to make an error versus you don't have a ton of preparation. You don't know what the holes do. And you just kind of hope to hit a shot as good as your opponent. It's a lot easier, I think, to get in your own way that way than have the preparation leading into it.
Yeah. And he was also vulnerable too. He said he had some recent mental breakthroughs. He was struggling to, accept poor shots on certain holes that give him trouble. Like we all see those holes we don't like, right?
Oh, yeah.
If you like to fade the ball and you have that dog leg left and you have to drive and you're like, oh God, right? I got to draw this, right? We all deal with that. But he talked about there was some holes that were really getting to him. Then he would really kind of lose control emotionally. And he's past that. And he's just accept the results because some holes are just tough. And they're going to be a little harder on us and might not be our best swings, but how do we manage that? And the only way we're going to manage it is with a clear head for the next shot, So, yeah, he was impressive, to say the least.
Very impressive. And so on the flip side of things, you have Carter, right? That was his name, Carter, who has a lot of resources and time on his hands to become one of the best golfers in the country.
Yep.
Do you guys mind how old, if I ask how old you are?
35.
Both of us.
Okay, so I'm 39, so we're kind of in the same age bracket.
Yep.
What does it take for people like our age, 40s, 50s, to play some of the best golf of our life?
So
Is it possible? What kind of time do you have to put in? Do we have to start looking at nutritionists? If it's a real passion of ours to take our game to a level that we want to do.
Yeah. Well, selfishly, I'd say you got to hop aboard the Part Train podcast.
That's fine. I love it.
Because I'll say that to me, I don't know about you, I assume you'd echo this. My most gratifying thing about what we do are the messages. And, we get messages every week from people that were even struggling with their marriage. We're letting golf and the struggles with the game bleed into other areas, or vice versa, letting things in life bleed into the game. And what I love about it is the concepts and the practices from a resetting, coming back to things that are productive, helps you with anything. So to me, I don't think you need a nutritionist, although my wife and I are really big into nutrition. We're from LA.
You're in LA, yes. Thank you.
Classic.
But I think first and foremost, like people just taking off some pressure and allowing themselves to make mistakes and not identifying with their shots, which is really, really hard to do. I totally get it. I experience it all weekend. Like it's not easy. But the ability to reset and shift your focus to something that's more productive, like a target instead of where you want to avoid, or leaning into confidence when you really don't feel like it. Like Maria Fossey was telling us, like sometimes you have to talk yourself into it, and a lot of times it's really hard to swing committed when you feel really, really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And shame and embarrassment and stuff. So simply people like being a little less hard on themselves and a little bit more positive out on the course and focusing on what they're trying to do. That's what Bob Rotella told us. Like if you focus on where you want the ball to go and you do nothing else and you get really focused on that, you're probably going to be better off than trying to steer something, trying to avoid something. It's counterintuitive, but it tends to work better.
I would mention a little bit to your question. I think anybody who wants to play great golf, you need to have a coach. I think it's important to have a teacher who teaches the swing. And you don't have to go every week, but you should go, once a month maybe.
Or at least a foundation of lessons, right?
Because and a lot, and the better you get, the harder you have to work on your fundamentals. right? The best players in the world are good players. It's grip, stance, alignment, posture. We're all going to swing it. How we're going to swing it may not look perfect. So having a coach that helps you understand how to practice, how to think, what to work on. And then what I would say to anybody who's really trying to shave strokes, do you really want to shave strokes? Practice your short game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You practice your chipping, your pitching, your bunker. Find a coach that can really help you with that. I mean, you can always find 3 or 4 strokes, in a round, and maybe a bad tee shot or a bad iron shot. But what about that chip that maybe you shouldn't have gone for the pin and you should have just tried to chip it 10 feet away?
Exactly.
You're in the bunker. Let's just get it out. So you really have to really, really focus on your short game and your wedge play, which is in that. But most people don't want to do that. Most people want to practice. You want to hit it long,
fun.
right?
It's
Just
fun.
go to the range and hit bombs all day.
You really got to.
Tell her about what 2022 was. Year of
It was
what?
the year of the short game.
It was.
Right.
Okay, tell us about the process. What was the goals? I love this. The year of the short game.
Well, you and I think had a moment at the start of the year, and I just looked at you. I'm like, do you ever practice your short game?
We realized I go to the range.
Oh, so you were making Evan's year of 2022
Yeah.
and year of the short game.
And then
we had a
brought
bunch of listeners
brought other
come
people
in.
this.
And we got a ton of messages that people had huge gains from this.
Yeah.
Where I realized, so now I live across the street from a driving range.
Yeah.
Dangerous, but also
Dangerous.
amazing. Like I had weeks this year and late last year that I was going. I mean, I have no problem putting in the time. Like I'll go 5 days a week.
Yeah.
No problem. And I would spend an hour hitting balls.
Off the
And
mats.
Off the mats. LA, not a lot of grass.
No grass out there. What's up with that?
Yeah.
Well, that land, it's expensive, you know?
I guess.
And I realized, what if I spent 30 minutes chipping and putting and 30 minutes hitting balls?
Mm-hmm.
And my short game,
I mean, you chipped and pitched so well this week. And
that was the one thing I was confident
You
with
got a
this
lot of
week.
compliments on it, too. But, start there. So let's start with 30 and 30.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah,
you only have
half
an
and
hour,
half.
because everybody's got time constraints. Clearly, Ev's got a little time, 5 days. But,
Driving ranges across the street.
Right.
I mean, that's why we moved there.
I mean,
Yeah.
he sets himself up for success. But we started there. Can you just break it up 50-50? But the goal was, to increase it to be geared towards more short.
Yeah,
games.
80-20,
80-20.
70-30.
Yeah. So, but that's like, oh my God, I got my bucket of balls. I just want to hit my driver. It's like,
But there's a real power in this that you won't expect, too.
this was interesting.
By simply having more confidence around the greens, you become more committed in full shots.
Yeah, that's
Because
that is true.
you're not relying on hitting as many greens as you maybe were in the
You miss a
past.
green, you're like, I'm okay.
Yeah,
I
I can get up and down from
you
there.
become more excited for the challenge, and it is a game of recovery. That's literally what it is. There's obstacles put in place for us,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
even though we don't like them. That's the game,
Yeah.
you know.
I mean, who said it? One of the guys.
Like, would it be as fun if we were hitting into a big farm field, and then just hitting in a farm field? Right. Probably not.
Wouldn't be a game.
Yeah.
Probably wouldn't. It'd be like a weird activity that someone's doing on a farm. It like wouldn't make any sense.
Or if it was that easy, yeah, we wouldn't want it. We wouldn't keep coming back.
So basically,
Yeah.
I said to Ev, go to your range and set an example to everyone there. And,
Wow.
and be that trendsetter.
And I'm not gonna-
And I want to see who else is gonna come over.
Tori, I'm not gonna lie to you. Some days I'd go to the range and I'd be like, all right, someone, might see me not going to the short. I
Yeah.
felt sometimes I like wanted to still do 100% on the range because I'm really hitting it poorly.
Mm-hmm.
I had to force myself every time
Yeah.
to try and split it up. So it's not easy to do.
Right.
Again, none of this
It's
is.
it's not sexy.
That's a big
right?
theme, actually,
yeah.
of all this. Is it's not fun. It's not easy.
This
But
is
the best people do it.
This is the work you got to put in.
But it's the low hanging fruit.
Right.
Correct.
I mean, it's the easiest way to take 3, 5, 7 strokes off your rounds.
Easy.
How about the summer of the short game? This summer. Let's put it out
Can
there.
we get back to it?
I mean, it doesn't hurt,
Yeah.
I mean, the snow is thawing. People are pumped. They're dusting off their clubs.
Midwesterners, yeah.
Yeah, summer of the short game.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into our actual topic today. So you guys posted, it was back in January, a video. And it was called 5 Keys to Stay Miserable on the Golf Course. I loved the post. It got my eye right away, of course. And I got to say, in my journey with golf, I have gotten to a more jaded place. I have gotten to a more being present on the course, or like what I really like to do is compete. Everything else other than that I get impatient with, you know. Golf has gotten to be longer. The rounds have gotten to be longer. So I'm like, okay, what's this post all about? So I wanted to have you guys on and go through each of those 5 keys to stay miserable out on the golf course.
And nobody wants that, right?
Nobody wants it.
No.
But I know that even just that word
It exists.
will resonate with a lot of golfers out there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know,
We all
because
we all deal with it.
for some reason we all love this sport, but it could take us to that misery really quick.
Yeah.
You know, so let's
So
get
I-
into key
so-
number 1.
You know, this was back in January. The first one I remember, it was expect what you do on the range to go to the course. And everybody talks about it, and it's hard not to look at it. I did it this morning. I was hitting it good on the range. But as Brett McCabe tells us, sports psychologist for John Rahm, you can't compare it. They're
There's no correlation.
There's literally nothing in common with it besides you're hitting a golf ball.
So what would you say the purpose? I'm sorry, I'm getting a little off track. But,
Yeah.
but warming up, going to the range before a round, what would be the purpose of it then?
What you just said, warming up.
Just getting the body
Or
going.
hitting some shots that you might see if you're going to, like, for example, if it's windy, right? No point to even hit anything but a knockdown.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know, on
it's,
the range,
It's to
or-
get loose, and if you can simulate some of the holes that you're about to play a little bit with club selection, do that, right? But that's kind of it. You know,
You can make the range more like the course. You can say that flag there is OB, and that flag on the right is the right side of the fairway. Don't want to hit it OB, obviously, so I'm going to set up to this. I'm going to stand behind it and try and do it. You can play games like that and not hit the same shot over and over because we never do that. But obviously, there's no consequences. You can hit it anywhere.
again, it's not real.
It's not real.
But in this first key that we're talking about, it's almost like managing your expectations at the range. So yes, you're striping it. Great. Just you can't take,
Right.
just managing your expectation as you're going out on the course. Like it's not automatically going to be like that, or other way around.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you could be hitting it terrible, but okay. Well, I
Yeah.
got a chance to hit it great, right?
Yeah.
So you just detaching.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a good point, that it's good and bad. And I think that carries to the course, right? You can't identify with the bad ones. Probably shouldn't identify with the good ones as much either. Like, it's good to have some mojo and some belief that you can, but I mean, I've seen 28, 30 handicaps hit one good shot on the 16th hole after 15 holes of just really poor shots and be like, finally, that's the shot that's me.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, well, no, it's not.
Yeah.
You've shown us the law of averages, whether you're playing poorly or not. Like, it's not. But we get caught up in our greatest shot ever and expect that that's going to be our average, which is so easy to do. It's all ego, right?
Yeah.
Ego loves it.
Yeah.
I hit a couple 3-woods today where I'm like, he's like, why? You don't need to swing that hard. Like, that's the yardage. It's good, but it's like feels good to like really rip one,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, and even the pros say that they might hit one, what they feel is perfect shot around.
Yeah.
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 Ben Hogan, the greatest ball striker ever, said 3 perfect shots around. And that's Ben Hogan, right?
Right.
So we've all heard it. Golf's a game of misses, right? And that's usually what's going to happen when you're out there. So when you start striping every shot on the range before, just don't invest in it. Don't worry about it. Just be focused on playing.
So just out of curiosity, before we move to the second key, what's your pre-round routine look like? Do you have a set pre-round routine? Or is it just
Yeah, I mean-
like I'm a trunk slammer myself.
Big
I like
stretcher.
I like a couple putts beforehand, but I mean unless it's a tournament then maybe I'll
So
be
you
a
don't
little
hit
more-
ball. You don't hit balls.
I hate hitting balls
Yeah.
ahead of time. No, I love to practice.
Sure.
But for some reason, going for a very long time before my round, I get antsy. So I'd
Yeah.
rather just show up, putt a little bit, and get going.
Yeah. When I'm playing my best golf and I'm really in my routine, I like to stretch for about 25, 30 minutes. Just
Big stretch guy.
Classic.
Just big
He
stretch
brought
guy.
a foam roller.
I would feel
in his
like you
bag.
from LA is a big stretch guy too. No, not as much.
I need
We'll
to get
talk
better
about
at it. I've actually started to do some Orange Theory for the first time and
He goes-
some
he goes, "What's-
spin
what's a foam-"
stuff
I don't
and
think I've used a foam roll.
hamstrings.
Like-
I need to stretch more.
You've
My
never even
hamstrings
used a
are
foam
tight
roll.
now.
You told me this morning.
Once, and I was like, I'd prefer the massage gun, but I digress. Keep going.
So I like to. I mean, you just got to stretch.
Yeah.
Because that has a lot to do with who you are that day, right? Something might not feel right. Something might surprise you. It's definitely stretch for 25, 30 minutes. Then I like to putt. I like to hit long putts, slag putts. I did that this morning. Just get the feel of the greens. And then I go over to the range 20 to 25 minutes. I used to hit balls longer, but I like just 20 to 25 minutes now. And if I got time, I definitely want to test out the sand. And then I go back, and I go back to putting. So you're like, this is the craziest routine.
This is a 7-part routine. I like it.
And I go back to the putting green, and I just work on 3-footers, 2-footers. I want to hear the sound of the cup. I don't work on in-between medium range putts because those are putts you usually miss. I don't want to see putts that I think I should potentially be making missing before a round.
Yeah.
So I was taught by I had a caddy in the Western my junior year in Blythefield, Michigan. He was a local. He caddied for me. And he taught me, let's just do 2 3-footers before we play. And I did. And just hear the sound of the cup. Hear the sound of the cup. And so that's my routine. A little long, a little crazy.
No, I like it.
like
are
the
you a back of the cup kind of guy, or are you diet in?
For short putts, back of the cup. Yeah.
Nice.
But it's just but depending where you're playing, you may have to really adjust and be a die putter. But
now there's also, I'm like the opposite. There's what you said. There's benefits to both depending on what's best for you, right? I do think there's a power though in feeling like you don't need the warm up. Because I think there's sometimes it's really easy to feel like this is a perfect example, right? You hear your name on the loudspeaker on the first tee and you're like, oh, I got to get a driver. I got to hit a driver before I go. But do you?
Yeah.
Because now I'm placing my confidence on the first tee to whether I can hit a good one. It's nice.
But isn't it interesting because you guys don't really like to hit so many balls or hit any balls? And it's just how you define your preparation. For me,
right.
If I don't hit balls, I'm off mentally. Like I feel a little nervous. I don't know what's coming. Like I didn't take the time to see who I am today. Where you might say, I don't really need that. I'm not invested in this warm up. My job is to go play, and let's go play.
So we unpack this on a podcast. This is good. So he has a narrative through his life that he just needs to he likes some tough love, some tough love, and I need to put in the time and put in the work, clearly, right?
Yeah.
So if he messes up or he's starting off slow, he's going to get more frustrated with himself than he would have if he put in the time. If he put in the time and he warmed up, well, I'm just starting off slow. I did everything I could.
Yeah.
If he doesn't do what he thinks he needs to, it leaves room for you, and you're going to be more upset with yourself.
That's tough for me mentally.
Right.
And then I got to deal with some struggles.
Yeah, and I feel that way with practice. Like, as long as I consistently practice, I've done everything I can.
Yeah.
When I squeeze my sessions in when I can, which some weeks are more substantial than others, but I know I've done the best I could. Well, I'm going to show up to the 4-ball championship later this week, and whatever happens, and I'll be okay.
So you're really focused on that practice regimen going into the tournament.
Yes.
That's what you're hanging your hat on. That's great.
So. All right, our second key.
We got sidetracked.
No, it's
second
okay.
Key.
I love
Easy to
that.
do.
I don't know if this is the right order, but I know one of them. It's try to go out and shoot your best score.
Yes.
Which,
so again, this is the second key to staying miserable on the golf course.
And we all do it, but let me ask you, whoever's watching this or listening to this, when's the last time you shot your best score when you were trying to shoot your best score?
So true. So true.
Or were you out there and your expectations were kind of low? You might say something like, I wasn't really thinking anything at all. Right? Or I was just kind of having fun with my friends. Or I didn't even have my clubs. Or something like that. And then the round kind of emerges. You make a long putt you didn't expect. You found a ball you didn't think you would. You get up and down. You hit a couple close. And suddenly you look back and you're like, holy cow, I just broke 80. I shot my best round ever, whatever it is for you. So going out, that's why I'm so amazed by Tiger being able to go out and say, I think the number is 65 today, and to go do it. Nobody else besides the pros can do that.
Yeah.
Because now we have the result in mind. And what's that going to do? You think that's going to let you swing free, or are you going to swing tight?
Well, I got to say, Evan, though, because I'm a numbers person.
Yeah.
So I usually know the number.
Okay.
And all the pros usually, what the number is just from experience
have an idea.
of what that number is to win or the low score of the day.
For sure.
But yeah, I definitely can't do it every time by any means.
Yeah.
But I'm sure most of them out there know, okay,
And that's not saying avoid it.
yeah.
That's not saying like, oh, I can't look at the big bad, leaderboard or the, on the app on the phone or whatever. But it's about like, okay, I see it. But the productive thought would be, but I have to play golf. I have to play the hole.
Yeah.
So what's the hole calling for? What's your swing key? What's your sensory feel, not positional, all that stuff. So
What are you going to say to the golfer that starts off really slow? Starts off double-double.
Oh man, is that the worst?
It's the worst. It's
sometimes
the worst.
you shoot your best score
Well, no,
starting
exactly.
off with a double.
And I have that evidence in my brain now where I know I've started off poor, but I've finished really well. So
Yeah.
I can kind of keep it together a little longer. But what do you say to the golfer that might?
Well, I think we all know how hard the first hole can be, right? The first swing of the day. You're always nervous, whether you're playing by yourself or you're playing, in a mid-am qualifier for a local section event. So you're nervous because you care, right? So you double the first hole and maybe you double the second hole. The round is always going to have peaks and valleys in some way or the other, right?
Exactly.
Even on one of your best rounds, you're going to have those moments where so look, you've got 16 holes left.
Yeah.
So your peaks are going to come. And as long as you realize, my mind just probably wasn't sharp on those first two holes. I let the nerves take over. I didn't have a plan. Look at it that way, as opposed to, I just can't swing the club.
Yeah.
My swing's gone. I can't swing it today.
Yeah.
And then you've kind of accepted defeat, and you're getting into kind of your mechanical head, where really it's just get back to thinking, let's play the next hole.
Yeah. Like what are we going to do for this shot?
I made some mental, I just wasn't right. My plan wasn't right. My emotions weren't right. I can fix that. Don't go thinking about fixing your swing on the course because we all go through it. We all deal with it. We all try sometimes, but that's what I would say after a bad start.
We did a whole podcast on this idea of recommitting versus reinventing. And so I think starting the round off I think it's relevant to that because so many of us might try and reinvent our swing, our approach, everything, really. The ball we're using, the club we're hitting, like literally everything.
The playlist.
The playlist, got to change it up. Booze versus not.
That ball's not working today.
Yeah, people will reinvent everything. But I would also get curious on why. It might be the way you're thinking about the round. It might be that you're afraid to mess up early on. You're not loose. Maybe you need to warm up, right? Maybe those are on days you don't warm up. So it's like getting clear on like the why behind things and the narrative, and then you can play accordingly and have the trust that you'll get into a rhythm. My body might be a little cold. Or maybe I just didn't judge that putt right. Maybe I didn't judge the lie right.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just not focused.
What
is it?
I feel like I use this line every so many podcasts, but my swing coach growing up said to us, golf doesn't define you, it just reveals you. And you have to understand that. So those first two holes that you struggled on.
Did you feel that in his heart?
I know, I really did. I really did.
He loves it.
We just needed a fire going on in the middle of it.
But if you always get back to that, you just revealed that you were uncomfortable or nervous or had a poor plan or picked the wrong club, right? It doesn't define you. That doesn't mean that's who you are the rest of the round.
So what kind of expectation should a golfer or a player have regarding score, like in general, or even handicap index? What kind of expectation should someone have, like a proper expectation going into a golf round?
Well, let's maybe dig in a little deeper. What ability is the player, would you say?
Well,
because
I'm going to say
expectations
it's
can get
someone
different
that wants to get better at golf, that cares about the game. They're not just out there passing time. They
Right.
care about the game. I mean, we can throw out a 20.
So
handicap.
maybe it's somebody who's a 20 handicapper and their goal is to get to a 15 by the end of the year. I mean, I think it's okay to get. We all want to get our handicap down, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm a 20 handicapper, I think a goal for the year, I want to get to a 15. But how am I going to do it, right? And it's some of the things we've already talked about. I'm going to work hard at my short game. So I think it's okay. Or I want to shoot. I'm a 95 shooter. I've never broke a 90. I've shot 92. Well, all right, so my goal is I'm going to break 90. I think it's okay to say that. I think it's okay to break 90 this summer or in this round, or I want to get to a 15. But how am I going to do that?
Yeah.
Right.
Write down and define how you're actually going to do that. So what are you going to work on your short game? That might be a good start.
Summer of the short
It's
game.
the summer of the short game, I hear.
So I'm okay if people like numbers and people like to see where they can get to based on numbers in golf, but I would tie that to specifically, your practice.
And to build on that really quickly, Colin Morikawa's coach, Rick Sessinghouse, has been on the show a few times, told us, like, him and Colin have goals, but those are long-term, like, put it on the bulletin board and leave it there type goals. Colin's not thinking about becoming number one in the world week to week.
Yeah.
Right? So you can place your goal, but then to Serm's point, like, you got to have something to guide you in the short term. And what I would say is a commitment goal. I'd rather people have commitment scorecards than worried about their regular scorecard, which is something we learned from Dr. Joe, parent of Zen Golf, is if you increase your commitments per round, so having a clear plan and going up and swinging committed, you're probably going to get a better chance of scoring well. And if you do that over and over, you're probably going to have better rounds, which could then lower your handicap. Versus if you've got the pie in the sky goal right here with you or here as you're playing, which is really easy to do because it hurts the ego, then every time I mess up, I'm going to think, well, this isn't what a 15 handicap versus a 20 should be, right? And just imagine anyone who's ever done anything well in life to judge themselves on their down points and say, I think this is really the definition of why we get frustrated in anything, is we're judging the current moment and wishing it was the finish line every time, when that current moment is probably teaching us something that we need to get to the finish line, if you're looking at it that way and willing to learn and evolve from it. But if we're judging ourselves against our goal, we're just going to get frustrated and we're not going to get there,
So, Matt, I'm curious, since you're a college player.
Yeah.
How long has it been since your best score ever?
Long time. Yeah, I mean, my best score ever was 64. And I had lots of 68s in college. So post-college, I think I've had a couple 69s. So it's been 15 years, and when I think about the best scores I've ever shot. Yeah.
And you can still go out to the course and enjoy yourself at the same level as you did in college?
Good question. Right. That was hard there for a while because
It
once
was,
started,
that
you
transition.
get out of college and you got to go find a job and
Yeah.
you don't practice the same, right?
Yeah.
Not practicing anymore. I'm not practicing my short game as much. So it took a little while to deal with that, to level my expectations. Man, I used to be so much better. I should be making that putt. I should be hitting that fairway. I shouldn't have choked away that round.
Yeah.
But once I realized, hey, you don't practice like you used to. You've got to figure it out a little differently. Enjoy that part. Be a little more creative. Hit a few more different kinds of shots out there. You might have to hit a few more 3-woods off the tee. That was big for me. But it's hard for ex-college players to
Yeah, I see it.
deal with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, do you need a little help on the third key?
Is it caring about what people think?
Yes. So the third key of being miserable on the golf course, caring what people think, trying to impress others.
Trying to impress others. That's better. Because we should probably clarify, as a human being, we're, tribalists in nature and we want to be accepted and that's how we survive, right? So you can't really tell someone not to care what people think. I think it becomes easier the more comfortable you get with who you are and your game, and because even club selection is hard sometimes, right? Like I hear that guy's hitting an 8 and I've got a 7 or a 6. You start to question it.
Yeah.
Right. But it's interesting to think about how often we're letting the opinion of someone else or trying to impress someone else create an unnecessary amount of tension. I experienced it this weekend. And it wasn't for me as much about impressing as much as just feeling like I'm a part of the group.
Yeah.
If you're the one that's constantly looking for balls or kind of grinding out there and scrambling and everybody else is in the fairway, I mean, it's not a good feeling.
No.
But the feeling is not the bad shots. The feeling is wishing you were with them or telling yourself that you're not good because you're not them.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, Matt, what were you thinking while Evan's struggling a little bit this weekend?
Yeah,
I mean, were you actually even thinking about Evan at that point?
Yeah, I mean, as a partner, and like I care about him. I'm rooting for him, you know, and I don't want to tell him too much or give him really any advice, but if he wants me to help him, I just want to be there for him. I'm just rooting for him.
Yeah.
So, but as a partner, you know, when you have somebody who's struggling, you don't want to get too invested in it either. So I was just, you know, I had to really just focus on what I had to do, because if I'm maybe worried that Evan's struggling too much, then I'm like, well, I really got to be the hero.
Yeah.
But so I had to separate that. So I was just rooting for the guy and just trying to be there for him. And hey, what do you want to drink? What song do you want to hear? You know, after you hit a bad shot, or after you hit a good shot, what'd you feel there? What'd that feel like?
He put on 2000s pop punk.
Yeah.
Actually.
Nice. Pop punk.
I didn't expect it. He
Little
put it on.
Avril
Lavigne came on. I was like,
I mean, that
Avril, I
makes
haven't heard
sense.
from you in a while.
You got excited.
I don't mind it.
He
You
got
know?
excited.
I got a little excited. I'm a top 40 guy. I dig it, you know?
So, I mean, I have an experience where we were playing in a 4-ball tournament, and my partner, our best ball was like a 71.
Yeah.
And my partner literally shot a 71. Like she did everything. Like it was just one of those rounds, you know, that nothing was clicking, and you know, I didn't contribute a ton, and it does makes you feel bad.
Sure.
But on the flip side of it, she had a great round. So it's almost like, okay, that happens, but you can be happy for your partner and just, you know, try not to take the whole group down with you.
One thing I'll really compliment Ev is he keeps his attitude up, and it's tough when you're struggling. We all know that. And we talked about it after. You know, he could just sit in the cart and think about his own game like we all would want to and just be depressed. He was coming out and checking out some shots with me, and, you know, and
I turned into caddy mode.
Yeah,
that's one of my keys. For
caddy
me,
teammate, right? And I think that really helped you on those last couple holes too, where you played well. You know, you were able to stay loose even when it feels like the world's coming down. You got to get your mind off it in between shots.
And by the way, I will point out, when I'm out at that green and I have a smile on my face, asking and trying to get to know our playing partners, do you know how hard that is?
Yeah.
Like, and I'm like, authenticity is everything to me. And so it's hard to explain how hard it is to smile, which some people might be surprised to hear that.
I totally understand what you're saying.
Golf does this to us.
Yeah.
And by the way, last year I played some of my worst golf ever because I'd be playing with people at these unbelievable places, and people know me as one of the mental game guys.
Yeah.
And we're all about helping golfers enjoy the ride again. Frustrated golfers enjoy the ride again.
Yeah.
And so I felt like I couldn't get frustrated. People are watching me. Right? So that actually made it harder for me, because I was judging myself for even feeling that way, which is a totally normal emotion.
It's okay to get frustrated. It's just letting the frustration go and not carrying on to the next shot, or the guys or the women you're playing with.
Yeah.
Because when do we have to stop ourselves? We're out on a beautiful golf course.
Exactly.
It's hard. It's hard to do, but if we can tap into that, there's a real power.
And I really appreciate your honesty there, because I totally get what you're saying, but you almost know that that's what you have to do. Like, you got to go out there, you got to put some sort of a smile on your face. You have to talk to them.
Yep.
Like when you're in that dark spot on the golf course, it's like you have to do everything you can to just be somewhat bright, because everyone knows that you're struggling, as far as like, because we've all been there.
Totally.
And I don't know.
And I would highly recommend, if anyone hears that and connects with it, the Damon Hack episode, Golf Channel commentator for years. We asked him, we had a great conversation with him about this.
Awesome.
And I was like, hey, have you ever experienced this? And he's like, oh my God, for decades, because he's like interviewed Tiger Woods like 30 times. And then he goes and he plays in these amazing events at Pebble Beach. And actually he listened to our podcast. He found it, listened to our show before he went and played in this, I think it was like a celebrity and amateur tournament at Pebble. And he finished second. And his thing was no swing thoughts, and like giving himself grace that his game's good enough. He doesn't need to hold on to that positional thing. But I think a lot of people struggle with that, of just, attaching to whatever identity whatever you identify with, right? And I think the pain is wishing it was different versus allowing it to just happen,
To just be.
and then lean into other people and try and be there for them, ask them questions, compliment their game, get a front row seat to great shots around you. Not easy, but
I'll get the link to that episode and make sure I put in the
Yeah.
show notes so that you can listen. Okay, number 4. Fourth key to staying miserable on the golf course.
can you remember number 4?
Tell us.
Okay, assume 0 mistakes. So go
Yeah.
out to the golf course assuming it's going to be perfect. Your last round was perfect, so of course this round's going to be perfect.
So what I'll say on this, and you know, I probably needed to say this to myself this weekend, but the one thing I'll say is I like to ask people, how many fairway green 2-putts do you remember? And I'm like, I mean, not that many.
Yeah.
How many from the shit, under the tree, roll it up to 3 feet, make birdie or par or unbelievable up and down do you remember?
I mean, even a green side bunker up and down. I love it.
And so that's actually something that I think maybe has unlocked a lot of our listeners, is just the simple switch of like embracing that it is a game of recovery and I'm going to get excited about the challenge to do it versus getting really pissed that you're there under the tree. Because I mean, pros are amazing at getting up and down from everywhere. That's what separates them for sure. I mean, they hit the ball, amazing. But when you look at people hitting the ball, if you look at a +4 versus a PGA Tour pro, I mean, it's not that different, you know? But these guys get up and down from anywhere and they don't get butt hurt when they miss it
Exactly.
either. So I think that's huge because none of us want to miss it,
Yeah.
you know?
No, I mean,
I get it, but
I totally echo what Evan said. Today, I hit the ball awesome. Best, I hit it pretty well all week, but hit it awesome. But I couldn't really roll in any putts. Now, this is not some get the violin out sob story, me too putting for par all day. It's really what it was.
I mean, it was on brand, honestly. Not great for a net tournament, but
At some point, 10 feet, 12 feet, 15 feet, you just can't make the putt. Doubt creeps in. Doubt creeps in like, do I need to make an adjustment? What am I doing? Am I, are my hands taking over? Am I lifting up? And that's
reinvent.
And there's just going to be some days where you hit it really well and the putts aren't dropping because there was a lot of good putts in there to do.
No, absolutely.
And reading Arizona greens, a little tough for Midwesterners.
Yeah, not easy.
Especially with the grain. So just that's big too, right? Because I've watched guys, or we've all dealt with it. You're hitting it great. You're not making your putts. You're expecting to make your putts. You press, and you 3-putt, and you pull driver on the next hole when you shouldn't.
And all of a sudden you had 2 doubles.
Right.
Right.
So mistakes come in a lot of different forms. They're not sometimes just the glaring, high right block into the desert. Sometimes it's, I should be making these putts, but sometimes they just don't go in.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to be patient.
Yeah.
All right, tell us number 5. I don't
Okay,
remember
the
number 5.
final one here. Feel good after a good shot, feel bad after a bad shot. So the 5th and final way to stay miserable on the golf course.
Some people might hear that and be like, what are you talking about? Like, that's exactly what we do, and we should do that.
When you play
should
bad golf, you're a bad person.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, why wouldn't I feel good when I hit it good? And it's like, well, you can, but I think the point of that statement is you can't get too high, you can't get too low. There's nothing wrong with a little neutrality, and the par train's kind of all about that. Like you gotta just have belief when you do it well, and use that, maybe put in your memory bank and use it as some reinforcing that I can do it. Right, like today after hitting, literally, you couldn't have hit the ball worse than I hit it today. I mean, he can vouch for me. You really can't. But I finished with 3 pars in a row, which took like every ounce of energy for me to do. And I realized that as I was doing that, things were just a little bit lighter. I wasn't hanging on. I wasn't like super pumped when I hit it good, which, by the way, it's so funny we're talking about this. I kind of did that. I was so excited to finally be back in play. So that was almost too high, which then created more pressure for me to keep it going. So it can create issues on both sides where if you just kind of play and you let everything kind of unfold, that's, I think, how you play your best golf.
Yeah, I think it's great. What I would say is you just can't get too invested in the good shot or the bad shot, because a lot what golf is resetting, right? So after that 20-footer you drain for birdie, that gets your adrenaline going, right? You get two up, though, your adrenaline's too high. You're not in the right frame of mind maybe for that next tee shot.
Exactly.
And then you come over, on the next hole and you 3-putt for double, hit one in the water. You're all over the place. So you have to always get back to, you said, neutral. So that's always the goal. And I think that statement is not too high up here, not too low down there, because neutral is where we play our best golf, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, I know I asked Matt, but when was the best golf round, your best score?
That's a good question.
Do you remember? I mean, you got to remember the round.
Yeah, I think it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I shot a 74 on a Muni in LA. It's so funny how the ego is like, well, it wasn't that hard of a course. It was like,
Can we just pat ourselves on the back?
know.
it's crazy, right? But that voice isn't us. That's, that's the anti-you. So, but yeah, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago. And I find that anytime for me, I just love breaking 80. So anytime I can break 80, I'm feeling good. But I just love those rounds because it's so up and down. And I just find the theme is I'm just more accepting of letting things, I'm like excited to see how it unfolds. Like if you listen to any Tour Pro interview, they usually say something very process driven. Like I really just want to get clear on my targets, or I just want to have committed swings, and then we'll see where the chips fall. We'll see what happens. Tiger says we'll see what happens all the time. And so I think that's what's helped me. You get excited about seeing it unfold.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, let's finish up with this last question, since you guys are in Chicago and LA. So what's your best sleeper course, in the area? And what's just your all-time favorite course in your area?
Public or private or both?
Either, but I mean, I would think the sleeper would probably be public, on the more public side.
Sure. Ev, you want to start?
That's tough. Can we do favorite course in our area, or do you mean anywhere?
You could go anywhere if you have something in mind.
Okay, because my favorite and sleeper is the same one in LA, so I'll do that for LA, and then I'll give you my favorite anywhere. Sleeper and favorite course in LA is Rustic Canyon, which is probably about 45 minutes north of LA County, up in the valley. It's a links style course, kind of in the hills and the mountains there. We're pretty highly rated and about 60 to $80. Impossible to get on because tee times are a real issue. I haven't played there in like over a year because of that. But super fun course. You can putt it 40 yards off the green if you want. Favorite course? I mean, it's hard. I have to say St. Andrews. And I'm actually, my wife and I decided we're putting off trying for a baby until the end of the year due to some health stuff she's going through. But we decided to just make it happen. And my dream of living for a month in St. Andrews is going to happen.
How about that?
In September. So,
oh my God, I love this.
So I'm going to live 10 minutes from the old course, 10-minute walk for a month.
Oh no, I love this for you.
Yeah. So if anybody's never been, obviously it's a cliche answer. Everyone knows it. But to me, the favorite part is the vibe and the feeling of the place. Everyone will use words like magic. The way I describe it is everyone there is having one of the best days of their life. Best golf experiences for sure. So there's just a great vibe. People know it. And
does your wife play?
She does.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say, if she doesn't play and she's like
Good
endorsing this amazing journey for you.
She's good high school player. She's on
varsity captain.
Yeah.
Of her
So
high
this
school
is
team.
as exciting for her as it is for you.
It is. Now she's going through some stuff with her foot, so she hasn't played golf in a little while. But we're using the St. Andrews month as like what we're working up towards. So she's going to hopefully play with me.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's a good player.
I love that. And just for the listener too, we were in Scotland this past September, And we stayed at St. Andrews for like 3 or 4 nights, and we played the new course. We weren't able, it was the RNA, the big RNA,
Sure.
2 weeks, so they had the old course shut down for that. But just being there during that was just amazing too. But just even playing on the new course was magical too.
Oh, yeah.
So if you don't get on the old course, it's okay. Like they have, 4 different courses there?
think
Like
so.
any of them, they're amazing, and the whole experience in itself is
Yeah.
breathtaking. So,
It's good.
all right, Matt, Chicago area.
So I'm going to plug Chicago for a sleeper.
Okay.
Public golf course called Pine Meadow. It's about 35 miles northwest of the city. But for everybody not familiar with Chicago, we were talking about this today. Chicago is arguably the best public golf in the country. There's just so many courses at a pretty affordable rate. But Pine Meadow, might be ranked in the top 15 public courses. It's just not thought about it because of the direction of where it is from the city. But the back 9 bumps up against the seminary, so it's beautiful. You just get some really, really cool holes along big sprawling lakes, and just a massive piece of property. So it's just beautiful. I grew up practicing there, so it's kind of nostalgic, but I think it's an absolute gem.
Good
So
practice area.
amazing. Two ranges actually.
Whoa.
Yeah, up top and down below, 3 chipping greens.
Now, just because there's
I
2
love it.
ranges doesn't mean you can spend 100% of your time at both ranges.
3 chipping
You got to
greens.
do
Have
30 minutes at one range. You got to pick which range you're
It's
going
a
to go.
short game summer, okay?
Yeah.
And then, so Pine Meadow for sleeper in Chicago. Favorite course, there's a lot, but some really amazing memories in Montana, playing golf in the mountains at Rock Creek Cattle Company, which is a private club that we were able to play a lot at. My folks used to be members there, so a lot of good memories. But, growing up in Chicago, didn't get to play in the mountains. So, and I really didn't get to play in the mountains so much in college. So post-college, northwestern Montana, just fun golf. And it's challenging, but it's not like the hardest course in the world. You get some hard holes, you get some wide fairways, shots down the mountain, shots up the mountain. So it's something about playing golf in Montana that really hits home. Spiritual, might we say. You really feel something out there. Really, I feel very connected to the mountains playing golf. The coasts are great, but there's something about the mountains.
There is something about
Rock
the
Creek
mountains.
Cattle Company,
Yeah,
but near Missoula.
fantastic. Well, guys, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you taking the time to come. And I really love what you're doing with your podcast and all your social media outlets. I really appreciate it. I find that there's a lot out there that's very geared towards professional golf. There's not a ton that's geared towards us amateurs and stuff that we can relate to. So again, for all the listeners, please check out their podcasts, their social media outlets. I know you'll get a lot out of it. And again, thank you for being here today.
Thanks for
Thanks
having
for
us.
having us.
Absolutely.